What a week it has been. Welcome back to Respect the Process. I am Kelly Hunter alongside the well-traveled Chris Stewart, who is the voice of Alabama basketball, the very dashing Chris Stewart. We've seen a lot of you on camera as well in these past couple of days.
You see why I'm on radio all the time.
We've got a big show, and I'm just going to go ahead and give you a rundown here in case there's something in particular you're looking to hear about, because first we're going to talk about the fallout with John Calipari moving from Kentucky to Arkansas. Second, we're going to wrap up the Final Four appearance that was this past Saturday night.
It was awesome.
And we'll finish up with Alabama A-Day. It is hard to believe that we are already within the week of
the end of spring.
Whew, I know.
I hadn't even managed to see him practice yet. I've gotten the first open invitation I've ever had to really. Yeah, not that I wasn't allowed before, but the first time I've gotten a message from the head coach said, "Come see us at practice," and I hadn't been able to do it yet.
I mean, daggone basketball keeping you busy.
That's fine with that.
You know, and it's funny, a lot of us woke up with word, or even late last night, about John Calipari, the decision to leave Kentucky and accept the open position at Arkansas. First of all, I know that you're excited that it's my early birthday Christmas gift to you that Musselman is moving on to Southern Cal.
I was fine with staying there and
rotting.
Watching him getting put. Not rotting. I don't want the guy dead or anything. Just career-wise.
Yeah.
It was very enjoyable to see Ernest T. Bass, the Ernest T. Bass of coaching, humbled as best he's going to be.
Yeah.
Dropped to a 500 record, and it's amazing how quickly his shenanigans went from being, in its way fans act. I know I've seen this with our own fan base. You know, they love some quirkiness about you as long as you're winning.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I remember the narrative on Anthony Grant going from, you know, I love how focused and stoic and locked in he is, to he's aloof and doesn't care. I'm like, wait a minute. If you want to say the man's not winning enough, that's fine. I can't argue with that.
Right.
But don't change your narrative on how he acts, because Anthony Grant hadn't changed.
No.
And that's the same way with Eric Musselman.
Right.
He was an idiot ripping his shirt off and looking a fool and acting like a moron on a lot of things. But he was going to the Elite Eight, and your fans are supposed to love
it's character.
you.
It's
and you're
charming.
supposed to, and if he's the other side, if you're a fan like I am, you're not supposed to like him.
No.
He's at your rival school, and we had some great matchups with Arkansas during his time, and he and Nate Oats coming in to those schools at the same time, and you know, Bama was able to show rings and championships, and he was beating his chest about the Elite Eight, and understandably so.
Yeah.
We've been beating our chest about getting to the Elite Eight and just beyond it, and didn't win a title. Take that back. We did win a title. We won a West Regional title. Yeah. That's a title. Getting to the championship game is not a title. I've rambled. I apologize.
No,
but the point is, it is not a bad thing to see him go, but it was the second domino on what's been amazing. SMU fires their coach. Andy Enfield takes the job there. And now USC is open. Musk goes back west, and thought it might be Chris Beard.
A lot of that has been a name, and still even a name that is being bandied about, because we talk about John Calipari, which here's something interesting that I've been listening to the next round this morning. So Calipari does not, but my first thought is, okay, Jimmy Sexton, what does he have in play here? Well, Calipari doesn't have an agent. He has a friend that manages him.
Yeah.
So this is not one of these, as we've seen in college football, like I represent him, we're going to move it all around. So Calipari takes the job at Arkansas, and we still have not gotten the final details as of this Monday here. But what a lot of people now are thinking and speculating, will Kentucky be willing to dish out whatever it takes to get the coach that they really believe is going to get them back to the prominence where they believe that they are?
Yeah.
And Nate Oats is one of those coaches.
As it should be for them.
And that is a coach who is being talked about. You know, Lance this morning was hell-bent on the Dan Hurley, which should also be a target. You know, I think if you're Kentucky, you shoot for the moon. But with Nate Oats right now, and what are your thoughts on this? Does he need to issue a simple statement, or is his buyout the statement? the $18 million buyout that he was recently.
Look, I'm not going to say he should issue a statement because even if you issue a statement, the narrative then becomes, oh, they never offered you the job. You just wanted to throw your name out there. Or the narrative becomes, yeah, but if they come back with more money, you still might go because Nick Saban said he wasn't going to go to Alabama either.
Yeah.
People are going to say what they want to say. So saying nothing prevents your words from being twisted.
That's a good point.
So I don't know that here's what he needs to do. Whatever he thinks he should do.
Yeah.
And I'm not sidestepping it because I'm his host of his TV and radio shows and play-by-play for Alabama. That's just the way I genuinely feel knowing the guy. Do what you want to do. Do what you think you ought to do. If you want to make the statement that allows you to reinforce your belief in Alabama, then so be it. If you want to simply go, I've said what I'm said. I signed the contract. This is where I want to be. Because the guy's smart. He knows. He knew that jobs were going to come open.
Yeah.
And he didn't need to sign anything else. He could have put it off. He could have delayed it. He didn't. He got it done. And agreed to an $18 million buyout.
Yeah. And
it's something that's done until it's not. And I'm not dumb enough to sit here and say I've seen enough things in my lifetime that I know anything can happen. But knowing what I know about him, about the job, the circumstances, his relationship with the administration, both at the university level as well as the athletic department, I did not blink twice when I heard Cal to Fayetteville, knowing full well that Nate's name would be mentioned first and foremost. I fully expect him to be the head coach at Alabama next year. The name that I'm surprised I'm not hearing, and I wouldn't still be shocked if it comes up and if it turns out to be the guy everybody talks about is Nate Oats. I get that. That would be a phenomenal hire for Kentucky.
Yeah.
The name that I would keep an eye on is Jay Wright. Jay Wright just retired. Jay Wright just retired. I don't know his exact age. I think he's around 60, maybe. Okay. I think he looks younger than he is. He's certainly still healthy enough, seems to be young enough. You know, I saw him at the Final Four. He's clearly enjoying television. He's great at it. But if he wants to make a run again.
Yeah, get back in the pressure cooker.
To get back, if he wants to go somewhere.
Well, and that Villanova is similar to Kentucky in that is the sport.
No doubt.
Football is not a competitor. There is no other sport at your school that is a competitor.
To me, it's more like UConn, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're more parallel just because football exists, but you can hardly tell. Yes, it is definitely the deal. But I think he would be a phenomenal. I think he would be.
Well, he looks
a classier, slightly less swag version of Rick Pitino.
Yeah.
I think he's a better coach than Cal, but I think he's still got enough juice in the tank to do things at a level that a Nate Oats would, and he's already got, 2 titles?
Yeah.
3? 2.
2.
So that's one. Let me tell you,
that's an
if I'm Mitch
one.
Barnhard, because it's a guy whose reputation you don't worry about, that's not at another school right now.
Right.
He's at a great job, but TV's not going to go anywhere.
No, and
CBS will be back there.
He's
again.
a candidate that you don't have to sell to your fan base or your players.
Absolutely
because
not.
Some of the names I hear that were thrown out, I'm like, Bruce Pearl. It's like,
Bruce is great. Bruce will win wherever he goes, but he's not as young as he was. Auburn wants him far more than I think Kentucky. 5 years ago, with Cal where he is now, they would have probably been really excited. Roll the dice. Go. NIL, everything makes it different. Let's take the chance. If he was coming right off his Final Four appearance, of his own.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not, and that doesn't mean Bruce doesn't have a lot left in the tank.
Yeah,
I'm
but
not
I
saying
think
that. But for Kentucky, I think they want younger. That's why I think Jay Wright gives him that. I may be completely off guard. I don't know Jay Wright.
He's an excellent candidate. I like.
He's who I would make tell me no twice.
I know he's a nice guy. My sister played volleyball at Villanova,
Did
so
you
I'm
really?
giving a shout out. And he was always very nice to the female athletes in that he was respectful of.
Yeah.
Because Villanova's not huge, so they had to share a lot of facilities sometimes. So
No doubt.
And saying that, he is a genuinely nice guy who
And that's
also
been my experience with him too. I've
is
met
an
him, talked to him a couple of
excellent
times. Don't know him, but I think to me that's the guy there of the ones that you would have a legitimate chance getting. I just don't think Nate Oates wants to leave, and I think even though he would be worth it, I think $18 million on the front end is a lot to pay.
Well, especially when you didn't get anything on the back end of Calipari with him with no buyout for him going on to Arkansas. But I really do believe that Mitch Barnhard has to hit a home run on this because
No
I don't
doubt.
think it has to be someone that he's got to sell to the Kentucky nation. This has got to be someone that Kentucky is excited about.
Yeah.
And gives them, because in college basketball these days, everything is so instant. You need to be within, I think Kentucky fans would expect at least a Sweet 16 run.
You should be
within
barring something goofy happening. I would absolutely agree that they should be their bad year should be round of 32 every fifth year.
Yeah.
They should be a high enough seed and consistent enough that you expect to be Sweet 16 every year. There's a few of those.
Because I covered Kansas earlier in my career, and again, Kansas is a school very similar to Kentucky, and UConn, we throw those in where that is the sport. Basketball is what they hang their pride, their hat, everything on, much as Alabama football has been for so long.
Sure.
Now with Alabama basketball gaining some steam, and just to kind of finish
it's a
this
locomotive.
up.
It's not
it
gaining
is,
steam.
and it's what Nick Saban always wanted. He wanted all sports to sell he wanted
doubt.
everything to be selling each other, so that every sport at Alabama always performed at a high level.
That's right.
And was bringing home hardware.
No doubt.
At every turn. Okay, so. As of we're recording this on Monday, there's still been no statement from Coach Oates. There is still a search ongoing for Kentucky, but I will be interested to see.
Yeah.
Because
I will be floored if it's Nate Oates.
Yeah.
I'd be floored if it's Nate Oates. I'd be really disappointed too. But just don't see that happening.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to get around to, because you just got back in town yesterday.
Whatever today is.
What? But hey. A Final Four appearance. If I had told you that, a month ago even? A month ago, as they were getting ready to go to the SEC tournament, after what they had been through.
I would have been a little surprised, but I wouldn't have said you're an idiot.
I know, because you said from the jump. But
I thought they played their best ball this time of year. I didn't know if their best would be good enough, but I fully expected their best.
And you had said
now.
if they play their best, that will give them a chance. And in the first half of Saturday night's game, I thought Alabama played some of the best basketball I had seen, and in terms of a complete half of basketball. And I almost got a little annoyed because the national TV guys at one point were saying UConn's offense looks sluggish. I was like, you got to give some credit to Alabama's defense, because they were playing their butts off.
They did. They were 8 of 11 from 3. You got to the half, despite Grant Nelson getting 2 fouls in the first 7-8 minutes.
Yeah, within 10 minutes.
They got to the half with him still just having 2. And see, he still played some more minutes.
Remarkable, yes.
You got Mark Sears to the half with him only having 2. You go 8 of 11 from 3, and you're still down 4.
Yeah.
There have been times where Alabama was down double digits at the half this year, but I didn't fear that they were in dire straits because they had not made shots yet. And you know the math is going to eventually work out for them. You knew the math was not going to get any better for you than it was. You're not going to shoot better than 8 of 11. Take that back. They made their first one of the second half. They were 9 of 12.
And then,
I think they made one, maybe two more threes, period.
Yeah.
The rest of the half. The other problem, they didn't get to shoot many.
No.
They did a phenomenal job guarding at the three-point line, and you can gamble and do that more when you've got a guy that can protect the rim
and that's
the way
what
they do.
I was going to talk about, because the defense that they played, it was a brilliant move on Hurley's part to force them either to take an almost an intermediate shot, which I know Coach Oats is not a fan of. He wants a three, he wants a layup. Well, obviously inside had been taken away because we saw on
get to the rim.
Countless layups.
Unless you're Grant Nelson in the midst of a play that will be one shining moment and then some.
He needs to have that just on his phone so that anytime.
Yeah. Anytime you're feeling bad about yourself in life.
Boom. But they took away the inside. They took away three-point range, and in the second half, that's where it started to come apart for them. And UConn continued playing their game.
Yeah, I agree. And if you couldn't get to the rim, it was going to be tougher and tougher to get to the free throw line. Now the foul numbers they let them play on both ends. I didn't think that it was. Let me back up. There were a couple of calls in that first half.
Yeah, well, one on Sears, I was like, I don't think he's anywhere.
Here's the thing. Here's the frustrating part about a couple of sequences. And to be clear, I'm just talking about in the flow of the game. UConn was better. UConn probably wins regardless.
They're a great team. They are a great
probably wins
team.
Regardless. But there are some things that had to happen, and you had to have a good whistle from the Alabama perspective to have a chance. If you wanted to get to the line, you had these things, but you had a double whammy. You had a couple of situations where fouls should have been called, I thought, on UConn on their defensive end that resulted in turnovers, where on the other end you had Sears or Nelson pick up fouls, and if fouls are called when they should have been on the other end, that sequence doesn't play out that results in the foul for those guys. And I think it was the second for both of them, and it puts them on the bench, or it forces them to play the game differently because they can't afford to pick up the third in the first half. So those are really big, and it's not just a call, it's a call that factors so much. It was a 4-point swing in that immediate situation, not to mention the fact it puts those guys on their heels defensively for the remainder of the first half.
Another big number that stops me.
That part was tough.
4 turnovers for UConn. 4 turnovers.
And Bama only turned it over 8. That's
I know.
Again, there's always things like I just pointed out that you can go, well, if this, but for Bama, it had to be this, and this. Yeah. And they got a good bit of the things they needed to have happen. The problem is UConn was just great. Even when you got them to play a little faster, bam, they'd hit a 3.
Yeah.
Those guys, there's no place those guys couldn't produce from. They're so good. And it's why, barring them having a terrible off night, they're going to win the national championship.
Yeah.
Purdue's really good. But it's all about how you play on a certain night.
Yeah.
I've seen it with Alabama's perfect season under Nick Saban, the first national championship. Yeah. They had a bad game against Tennessee and Lane Kiffin. But even Tennessee's best against Bama's worst wasn't good enough. If Bama has that bad game against somebody else, they probably lose it in football. This was a case where if Bama had played anybody else in that building on Saturday, if they'd played Purdue the way they played that night, or certainly NC State the way they played, Alabama wins. Yeah. But they couldn't beat UConn the way UConn played that night. There was no beating them.
I have it written down, a little bit of magic. I swear that is what, in combination with talent, a little bit of magic.
Yeah.
It's what gets you to this point and gets you to a national championship.
I say it every year with every team, but normally this is another example I use with Alabama football. It's the way I'll feel about Lane DeBoer's team this year. It's the way I felt about the last
Kalen DeBoer.
Who did I say?
You said Lane DeBoer.
Lane DeBoer.
I don't know
Good
Lane. I don't know if
God.
that's his cousin,
I
but
think-
Kalen.
I'm not worried about being
Or maybe
fired.
his good friends call him Lane. I don't know.
I just taught Lane Kiffin. I'm sorry. That
okay.
not only is a fireable offense, I'll probably be shot.
That's okay.
But anyway, Kalen DeBoer's best. Kalen DeBoer's this team this year is what I will say about each of the last 16 that Nick Saban have. They're going to be good enough to be in the mix at the start of the season. And I say this for most in this. You got to be good to be in the conversation early. You got to be great to be in the mix late. But you also got to be lucky to win it all.
Yeah.
And Alabama had some fortune, but they didn't get a ton. Part of their good fortune was going to be a couple of guys early that aren't supposed to make shots that Alabama decided we're going to make those guys beat us because we know what these other guys
Right.
can do. And those guys hit shots early.
They showed up.
And
I know.
And it evened out what Bama did from 3 going 8 of 11.
What was the mood on the plane yesterday?
You know, it was not happy. It was not upbeat. Those guys, those of us that are around it, we were so proud of them.
Oh, yeah.
And we're disappointed for them. Dang sure weren't disappointed in them. Big difference.
No.
You're disappointed because you know they wanted to
You
continue.
are one game away.
You're one game from playing for a national
One game
title.
away. That's
and
it.
if you win that game, these guys knew they were better than NC State, and they knew that they could beat Purdue because they played them toe-to-toe earlier in the year when they were not as good as they are right
Yeah.
now. Alabama was not as good as it is right now. So not a given by any stretch, but you knew full well your toughest ask, your toughest challenge was on Saturday. It was not going to be on Monday night regardless of who you played. So that part, yes, is disappointing and you're sad. But let me tell you, the saddest part for me was that it was over, period. It wasn't that they didn't win. They were great to be around. I have been around. I'm so fortunate, man, in 30 years plus of doing this on a professional level. I probably could count on 2 fingers, and I'm only throwing that out there because I can't remember specifics. The number of teams, and I'm talking football, basketball, and baseball, that I didn't enjoy being around.
Yeah.
You know, and that's so rare. I talk to guys all the time in my business that, like, you know, they had maybe winning seasons, successful years in the eyes of many, but just wasn't a fun group to be around.
Right.
That goes for coaches or players. And I don't mean yuck it up all the time, but, you know, there are times, we know this, we got great jobs, whatever your profession may be, but you just don't like who you work with.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And it can, even though the job's good, the environment is not. And I've been so fortunate that my situation has always been one where I've really enjoyed who I'm around, but this one especially, knowing how far they've come, how great they were to me. You know, when TBS was nice enough to do the feature on me,
Yep.
that ran, one of the craziest things that occurred to me was after the win against Clemson, we interviewed Rylan Griffin after the game. And I'm basically, I didn't ask a question, but maybe I did. It was something about congratulations and how do you feel? And he flips the thing and says, you know, we didn't know, none of us knew your story because they weren't around 4.5 years ago when I came back from being sick and everything. So they didn't know the story on me. And Rylan amazingly says to me, he said, we passed it around the team chat because it was on social media.
Yeah.
He said, we passed the video around on team chat and said, we got to win this for Chris.
Oh, that's
And I'm
awesome.
like, okay, I know you guys need to win it for yourselves. And that's a nice thing to say. But for him to even acknowledge me in that moment blew me away. And then Mark Sears comes over and points at me and grins and said, this is for you.
Oh,
and I'm
man.
like, these guys are unreal. So they were special, and I knew that beforehand.
Oh, yeah.
But when they add a personal touch like that, great guys. And I hate that I'm not going to be around that group, who they are, as they are. Because some guys will leave, some will either graduate. Yeah. Aaron Estrada's, we know Aaron Estrada's
that's
gone.
What we're going to talk about next. Is he
He's
has used up all his years of eligibility.
But I told him flat out, I said, I hope you know you've always got a home, man.
Yeah.
Because the way you, and everybody I talked to that dealt with him felt the same way. Just terrific. Came to Alabama because he wanted to hopefully be where he got. He'd never played in an NCAA tournament. Won 2-time Conference Player of the Year. He was the star.
Yeah.
There, fairly close to home, I think, if I'm not mistaken. It may be. But anyway, I know he was the star when you're 2-time Conference Player of the Year. But he wanted more than the individual stuff. He wanted to go win.
Yeah.
And win at the highest level. And he did. And I'm so happy that he got to experience it. But selfishly, I'm glad we got to know Aaron Estrada. Yeah, the winning was great, the plays, all that stuff. But it really and truly is the people. And they made this so special. Last year was the same way. My daughter was a student at UA for 4 years. She worked in the basketball program. She knew those young men, every one of them on the basketball team. She knew who they were as people. And it's what made last year so tough, knowing how unfairly they were being portrayed by a handful of media people trying to make a name for themselves, that didn't care about the truth, that didn't care about anything other than the clicks, and they enjoyed being the guys with the black hat, portraying Alabama's kids as the ones in the black hat. And it was so wrong and so unfair because I knew who those people were.
Right.
Same way with this group, different circumstances, not the same microscope that they were under, but equally wonderful and really, really proud of them.
So how hard does Nate Oates have to recruit them back? In terms of what he's got, we obviously Estrada will not be there next year, but of his other guys, like I'm just curious, like what is he doing today? I hope he's relaxing in some ways, but like he
relaxing. I know him.
I know the wheels are turned. The wheels immediately turn.
Well, for one thing, he's got to hire another assistant.
Yeah.
Because Austin Claunch is gone to Texas San Antonio. I saw something the other day where Ryan Panone's name is mentioned for Fresno. I would expect Preston Murphy to be back. I would expect Ryan Panone to be back if he does not get a head coaching job. So you got to hire at least one new assistant, maybe two. Younger staff members move on and get other opportunities. You have to fill those roles, but it's about players.
Yeah.
And he proved that with just one assistant, because that's all he had at the time, or none, that he is capable of putting together a roster. But he's got his hands full.
Because he's bringing in two McDonald's All-Americans, one that almost
two 5-stars and a 4-star high school kids that he signed.
So they're coming in.
You don't know yet about Grant Nelson. Latrell Wrightsell, I would expect to be back. I hope he is. Great kid, and I definitely think he helps this team tremendously. Rylan Griffin, I hope, is back, although he is a sophomore. You don't know what these guys are being offered.
Right.
Heck, maybe Andy Enfield, SMU's trying to get the hometown kid to come back.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just throwing potential things out there. We didn't think that the point guard that went to Arizona, drawing a blank on it.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
I told you not names.
Names, and it's my fault. I call names for a living.
That's okay.
But,
I know.
Jaden Bradley. Didn't think he would be gone, but we also didn't expect JQ to be gone. And if JQ doesn't say that he's coming back initially, Jaden Bradley probably doesn't go to Arizona.
Right.
That's why that left. So now you lost both of those guys. You just don't know how it's going to play out at this time.
But he is sitting in the catbird seat.
He is sitting he doesn't have to sell potential of what the program can be.
Right.
If you got any sense, But also love some stuff I saw of Dan Hurley the last couple of days where he talks about culture and what really matters. And I know that he and Nate have a very similar philosophy. Mm-hmm. Very similar. Just because a kid has all of these ratings and rankings, it doesn't mean you sign him. Does he fit who you are? You could have arguably gotten players that looked better on paper than Aaron Estrada, Latrell Reitzel, and Grant Nelson, but you couldn't have found 3 kids that fit better.
Yeah. No,
Just,
exactly.
They fit
it's trying to
perfectly what you
find
needed and wanted.
how it's all going to come together. Because, I think that's probably what a lot of people are trying to figure out is what is this team going to shape up to be next year. And, again, I mean, you hope to keep the core nucleus together, but in this day and age, basketball truly is one of the quickest you can win next year if you get between the portal and
or you can be bad and you can take a parallel or lesser job.
Exactly.
Because the posse is after you the way it was for Eric Musselman.
Yes. So where were we all seated before we move on? Because it's an elevated court.
Yeah. I was halfway. I was probably halfway down the paint as you're watching on television, the right side.
Yeah.
Okay. I was 8 feet from the baseline in terms of where I was positioned side court. If that
Some people
makes
may have
sense.
liked it. They showed some awful angles on television.
Look, there could have been some bad ones. Some of those stationary cameras, there were like 6 positioned right in front of me. But it was better than I have at Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
It's better than I have at Ole Miss.
Court, yeah.
It's better than I have a few places, even though it was such a huge place. And it was a deal. Look, I almost wouldn't have cared because it was there. You know, Tom Stipe goes, "Can you see okay?" I said, "Tom, I'm fine. I'm at the Final Four." Yeah. And he just laughed because that's really the way we felt. But there was so much available to you. And I clearly could see, as well as I was going to, when you are looking at ankles.
Right, yeah.
Basically.
That's kind of what I was.
But I had an unobstructed view. I mean, it's a long way to my left, but I could see well enough.
Yeah.
The main thing for me was trying to find a consistent, and I did, thankfully, identify where the consistent scoreboard and clock would be.
Yeah.
Because, when you have digital, sometimes they'll change those and they become graphics boards or commercial or defense or whatever chant you want to put up there. And if those things change, that is deadly for a play-by-play guy. Well, on radio especially, I've got to be able to find – there's usually one, at least, that never changes. And I identified where those were, and I could be able to give score and time all the time. And if I've got that, they also had a video feed directly above us that I could look at pretty easily.
Yeah.
We had a monitor that was only about a half second behind real time. So it was fine. Again, it was the Final Four, man. I wasn't going to nitpick about a lot of things.
No.
And it was done well enough that it wasn't an issue, even if it was a Tuesday night in late November or early December.
Any celebrity sightings that were not Taylor Hicks?
Yeah, like I had in
like you had when you were out in Los
Angeles.
Like I had in LA.
I
didn't know if there were any good celebrity sightings while you were out there.
There were a bunch of coaches.
Well, yeah, I mean,
a bunch of coaches. Obviously, we saw. I don't remember seeing anybody beyond that. I know the guys from the next round are really close with Chuck. I mean, very good friends, and spent a lot of time with him. I had met Chuck once or twice, but I'd been connected with him just to meet him on their set or right off of it when he finished. Got to talk about our Birmingham connection, really our Leeds and Fairfield connection, because that Fairfield's where I grew up, and he had some really good games between Leeds High School and Fairfield when my brother was actually a high school coach, didn't coach basketball, but I'd hang out with him while he worked the concession stand.
Nice.
I remember Leeds playing a couple of times at Fairfield and that being the case. But the coolest thing I got to do, beyond just seeing a lot of people and their joy for being there from a Bama perspective, I did get to go to dinner with Ernie Johnson. We had been connected. We had been connected through and the producer of the piece that they were so kind to do, lady named Khalil Cage. She is an Alabama grad. Okay. She, 15, 16 years ago, actually was a member of Crimson Cabaret for the Crimson Tide, but she has been, since graduation, working with CBS and Turner as a producer on a lot of their college football stuff and and the NCAA tournament and NCAA basketball, and they were doing those confidential pieces with different teams where they get basically they're embedded with the team. They follow them around. They travel on the bus. They stay in the same hotel as the team and do all of the behind-the-scenes stuff. And she originally, I think, had Boise. Then they lose, and I forgot who they got next. And then their assignment, just her crew, was just given Alabama, starting with the Sweet 16.
Mm-hmm.
And she came to me. There was a practice at USC before the North Carolina game.
Okay.
In the Sweet 16.
Yeah. Okay.
Jim Herrick came to see Preston Murphy, who had played for him at Rhode Island. Coach Herrick lives in L.A., and I'd gotten to know Coach Herrick when Mark was at Alabama, and he coached at Georgia, and also we had a mutual friend in Joe Dean Jr., and got to spend some time, a very memorable day on the golf course at Old Overton with Coach Herrick. So seeing him was cool. But Khalil told me at that practice, she goes, all right, if with your permission we want to do a feature on you, a 4-minute deal that'll run on pregame if you get to the Elite Eight. And I said, okay. She goes, we're going to need to do the interviews and a lot of the stuff, but know that if we don't, she goes, it's not going to be completely nixed, but it'll probably be put off until football. And we do it. We'll come and do more at football.
Hold on to it, yeah.
And do it then. And the fact what you've been through and the fact that you're now the football guy as well as basketball. She goes, and in fact, there was a conversation. She ran it past the producer in New York, and they were talking about waiting for football, and then they decided to stay that route if we won.
Right.
So literally as soon as the game ended against North Carolina, there's a camera in front of me, and she goes, we're going to have to, they had already done a 30-minute sit-down interview with me. She goes, but we're going to need to talk some more. We're going to need to follow you at practice. Yeah. And it was weird walking out of the hotel and having a camera in my face and got to know them. They were terrific with me. But Ernie Johnson had said some stuff. He was the one that led into the piece, but unscripted. He talked about me with the rest of the crew after the piece ran. Yep. He then talked about me at the end of that night after we beat North Carolina. And no, I'm sorry, after we beat Clemson to go to the Final Four.
That's right. I'm sorry. I said that to you on Saturday night. Yeah.
And we have a mutual friend. I've sent out a text to him thanking him for it because I've never met Ernie before. Read his book, heard everything about him, nicest man in broadcasting, never met him, but sent him the text thanking him. His reply back was something along the lines of, I've made it my mission to sit down with you away from the noise of the Final Four. Let's plan to get together for breakfast or lunch.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. The next day I get a text, got dinner reservation, 7:30 Maestro's City Hall. Can you make it? I said, I can make it.
I think so. I can clear something. I can move some things around to.
He was fantastic. It was so cool to spend 2 hours, and he's Ernie Johnson. He's one of the top broadcasters in the nation, but he was a regular guy. He was in that setting. He was a colleague. He was a Christian brother. We were able to share some things.
Yeah.
And he was a phenomenal ear about some things in my life that I wanted to share with him because he said he wanted to know the story.
Yeah.
And there's some things
it's nice to find a kindred who also has been through,
he's been through a lot,
share.
His family, but it was an honor to be able to share not just the good stuff, but the bad of me as well. That some stuff I'm not proud of, just to be candid, but to have him know the full story of me and have him still give me a hug at night's end and tell me how much he enjoyed the time and that I'd stay in touch and got an invitation. Here's the thing, he made me a hero with my kids because he extended an invitation for me to bring the boys to Atlanta during the playoffs to watch them do the show, the NBA show.
Did you split the check?
He would not allow it.
Man.
Not allow it. So it was a trip that I will never forget. There's only 2 ways it could have been better, a win and then another win on Monday night. But beyond that, it was beyond anything I could have
I
imagined.
can say there were only 3 other schools in the country that were there with you, so and Cruz. So you take that one and you check it off the list and you hold on to those memories, because we now have to turn the page. Basketball season has officially closed, at least for Alabama, and we're on A-Day week now.
That's what I've heard.
Which is crazy. You've been gone a while, and I don't know if you know it, but there's a new football coach.
We've met.
In Tuscaloosa. His name's Kalen DeBoer.
We've met, even though I called him Lane DeBoer earlier. Sorry.
That's what his good friends call him.
Yeah.
And so you have an A-Day coming up this Saturday. You'll be on the call for it. And I know you've just gotten back in town. How much information do you need to get ahead of time to call the A-Day game? Because it's different than a
it is
than a regular game.
And look, it's basically, for us on radio, there's some play-by-play to it.
Yeah. Definitely.
There's a lot of talk show to it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Really is. And so there'll be a lot of conversation throughout the broadcast about the team, the program in general. It'll go quicker, I think, in many ways than a regular game itself.
Yeah, because I was going to say, you've also got some new faces, transfers from Washington.
Yeah.
That came with DeBoer. People that came back that left in February that we know that.
There's a lot of reading I've got to do this week. There is zero doubt about that. I've got a lot to catch up on because it has been truly in basketball mode.
You've been all basketball all the time, as you should.
And tonight even I've got, hey, coach, and it's the last one that I will do for the year. I think, other than one I'll do at the beach here in about 3 weeks. But it's the last that I will have for a couple of weeks.
Did they do a basketball coaches meeting down there, or what did they do?
No, it's actually just one. I think that Bob wants us to do Baumhauer because we do it from. Yeah. He's got a restaurant in Foley.
I didn't know
because
they will do like the football coaches meetings down at the beach. I didn't know if they did basketball.
We're not doing it. We're not doing it for that reason. It's because Bob asked us to, and to a small arm, come to the beach for 3 days. But it will be a very enjoyable opportunity. But tonight's show is going to be talking about a gymnastics team that qualified for the national championship again, even though they went to a site that was hosted by a really good Michigan squad and also included I think the favored team to win the national title in Oklahoma, and only 2 teams go. So they had to beat Michigan on their own floor in order to advance. It's very impressive. So we'll talk with Ashley Johnston about that. And we'll talk with Patrick Murphy, whose softball team just got a sweep, I believe, at home. Won a series, I know, against a highly ranked Ole Miss team. But that's where the conversation goes. That's kind of part of what I do in my job is enough to
Let's
be dangerous.
Let's talk about winning. Yeah,
you have to know enough about everything to at least put it on a tee for them.
Just be a little dangerous.
But then from Tuesday through Saturday, it'll be trying to cram for that exam. And thankfully, if I'm saying that, I'm cramming for an exam, but it's open book on Saturday. It's not a national championship game. You want to be prepared. You want to be able to talk storylines, and it's an obvious, who are all these guys and what does it potentially look like? And the truth is, for a lot of us, we don't know. With Nick Saban, you knew what you were going to get. Plug and play in many ways, not completely, but a lot of that because you trusted that Coach Saban was going to have it handled one way or the other. What this will look like, we just don't know, and there's a lot of eyes that will be on that. I'm also excited to see if we get great weather, what's the crowd going to be like?
Yeah, the crowd is going to be an interesting kind of forecast. The other thing, what do you think fans want to see on Saturday? I'm just trying to think of
every pass caught. Some big defensive plays, but yet the offense still executing.
So it's amazing.
There's no way you're going to if the offense throws up huge numbers, dear Lord, we're not playing defense anymore. If the defense is in complete control, our offense is terrible. You know how that works.
Oh, yeah.
It'll be knee-jerk, and it's a practice. We're talking about practice.
It is.
They want to see their team.
Practice.
They want to see their team on the field. They want to see playmakers make plays. They want to see no athletic trainers on the field looking at anybody. They want to see good weather, and there are elements where people are going to be probably happy or unhappy, unless you have a bunch of broken tackles and a bunch of fumbles and drop balls. One side or the other, there's going to be something to be happy about.
And I mean, the other thing is, it's going to be a different way of comparing last season to this season in that, well, this area is vastly improved or this area is drastically different because they're also implementing a new system.
Sure.
So, I mean, obviously,
look at
offensive line, if you're, in terms of protection, that's one thing that you can compare
doubt.
to last year. But when we're talking about playmakers, when we're talking about guys stepping out, it's going to be wildly different.
Let me give you two very simple, fundamental things that I think people will look at, talk about, and they'll be easy to measure and gauge.
Please help me.
What do the snaps look like?
Good point.
And do you make kicks?
Oh, yeah, because we don't have Will Reichert anymore.
Those are two very
We're auditioning.
easy. There are two very easy to analyze and observe things that I think that will be talked about, that I will have eyes on, that I want to see executed. I don't care if there's any 55-yard kicks made right now, but 40 and in, let's have it between the uprights, and let's see if we can get a snap to the quarterback.
Will you ask DeBoer for any information leading into this in terms of
I'll do an interview with him.
Or?
Yeah, I will do. That'll be provided to me. Josh Maxson will get me what I need as far as that's concerned, as best he can.
Yeah,
because a lot of that's kind of put together. In the past, you knew what you were going to get from Coach, because I guarantee you, the way it was done and what came out and when it came out did not vary. That's part of what's working with a new coach, new circumstances, is what do you want done? What does he not necessarily care about in terms of how it's done? He'll just ask, what do you need? There are some coaches who won't care what you need,
right?
But I think he will be one that at least asks, all right, how can I help?
I was reading an article, and it was comparing, it was talking about the differences between Nick Saban and Kalen DeBoer, and it said there is one similarity between the two of them, and it's players respond to authenticity.
Yeah, no doubt.
And I really do think that is one thing between both Kalen DeBoer and Nick Saban that you can say is they are their authentic self.
No doubt.
At least from what we know and what we see from, and you see it more than I do, but.
I never claimed to be close to Nick Saban, but I got to observe a lot with Nick Saban. And I had no problem defending Nick Saban because of what I saw for years before I got sick, and he finally knew my name just because I got sick. I'm somewhat kidding, not completely, but really and truly, I saw how much he cared about kids. I saw how he completely deferred to the medical personnel, the medical team, when it came to playing a kid that was injured. How he dealt with all that, his genuine concern for people. I personally witnessed 4 years after he'd graduated, A.J. McCarron being back in the locker room after a ball game, him speaking almost sheepishly to Coach Saban as he went by looking to shake hands with current players after a win. I saw Coach Saban do a double take, grin from ear to ear, shake hands, and hug the kid. I know how he cares about his players. I know how he cares about people. That's the kind of stuff that I believe is absolutely authentic with Kalen DeBoer. I know some things that I've encountered personally that make me believe that, in addition to what I've been told from others who have seen things firsthand. I love the fact that his defensive coordinator, Kane Womack, has already met 3 times, I believe, is what I was told, one-on-one with Nick Saban to get him to look at film with him and break things down.
Can you imagine?
I mean, we talk about going to coaching clinics and resources and all that. If you've got Nick Saban on your campus, in your football stadium, in an office, with a willingness to help you, you would be foolish not to. Right. To me, the fact that they have done that, they're not intimidated by that. Right. They embrace it. It's fantastic. It's a really, really, really good start.
We will be excited to hear and see everything from A-Day. What time is kickoff on Saturday?
3 o'clock, I believe.
3 o'clock?
I
Okay.
believe. I'm not even sure what time zone I'm in, but I think
Well,
it's
I know.
3 o'clock Central.
It is
I think it's 3
earlier
o'clock
than the
Central.
national championship game, and that much we know, because at least 3 o'clock kickoff, the lights will be on probably, but they won't need them too much.
Shouldn't. I hope we're out of there before we need the lights.
Exactly. But look forward to hearing you on A-Day. And
Me
then
too.
after that, we're going to give you a much needed spring. It's
I'm
an
gonna
extended
take it.
spring break on into summer.
I feel semi-retired, which is kind of cool because for years I've gone football, basketball, baseball. Did baseball 24 years. I decided about 8 months ago that I needed last year to be my last one. I've got as you know, a 13-year-old who I want to be able to spend more time with. He's the last of my kids that's at home.
And he plays
golf, and so I'm able to use that as an excuse to get out there myself. But it is the last time I'm going to have this. Gone a bunch. I've literally been on the road for a month.
Yeah.
Minus less than a handful of days. I'm thankful that I get to be home and spend some time with him. Do some things that I want to do. And I still have another baseball series to do. I'll do Alabama LSU baseball in Tuscaloosa, but I'm really glad that I get the time at home. I'll get some speaking engagements as well, Red Elephant Clubs, alumni deals, Yay Alabama things with, I'm supposed to travel a little bit with Coach DeBoer for those, so I'm excited about the chance to be around him and learn some more there. But I'm really appreciative that the Next Round family, first of all, I'm grateful to you for reaching out to me 6 months ago. No, I'm serious.
I know.
You reached out to me 6 months ago and said, I'm thinking about doing this and approaching the guys. Would you be interested? I said, absolutely. You and I have known each other, been friends for years. We've never had a chance to work together, and I didn't know what it would look like. But the truth is, this is what I walk in with. You're the one that does the work and the prep. I run my mouth, and you tell me eventually to stop, and I do appreciate it, and they appreciate it when you tell me to stop. But it's been great, but they've given us a platform, literally. Good friends of ours, thankful that they've given us a chance and that people have been so receptive to it. But it's good to take a little break, deep breath, and then come back around media days time and let's go get it again.
We've been granted season 2 clearance, so we will. We're going to take about a month or two off.
What is it, 3 years we've got to get before we go syndication?
Yeah, I think
Then that's
right.
where the real royalties are.
That's when the money starts rolling in. So we've got season 2 coming up. But yeah, we'll be coming back to you right around SEC Media Days. And then we will be there with you for the football campaign and the basketball campaign and whatever else lies
Whatever they tell
ahead.
us to
So exactly whatever they tell us to do is more like it. But we got to thank Scott Forrester back there.
Scott's the best.
He's the best. He puts up with us. He he dresses this up and makes it. There we
he
go.
goes.
There's a
Thank
way.
you.
There, thank you. He dresses this up and unplugs the different things back here that say make noise and drives him crazy. Kind of like us.
Well, short
like
drive
us.
to
No.
drive us crazy.
But we want to thank y'all so much for always coming in, watching us, just catching us whenever you can. So we'll be back right around SEC Media Days. But before we get going, I've got to get a hearty
It's normally Roll Tide, but I will just echo what you said. This time it's thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Roll Tide, and we will see you back here this summer. Respect the process. Take care.